Welcome to the What's Your Ethos podcast. Hi, I'm Peter Colis, the CEO of Ethos. Today I talk with JC Brueckner, the U.S. CEO of SCOR Global Life. SCOR is the world's fourth largest reinsurer, offering its clients a diversified and innovative range of risk management solutions spanning life, health, and P&C. We discussed creating value in the reinsurance markets, delivering value-added services to overcome commoditization, bridging the protection gap, and the power of a team. Let's listen in. Welcome to the What's Your Ethos podcast, where we interview the leaders from insurance carriers, distributors, and insurtechs, tackling some of the thorniest issues in the industry. Hi, I'm Peter Colis, the CEO of Ethos, and today we have a remarkable guest joining us, JC Brueckner. He's the U.S. CEO of SCOR Global Life. JC is a passionate advocate for protecting lives and closing the protection gap, ensuring that more individuals have access to the insurance coverage they need. SCOR is the world's fourth largest reinsurer, offering its clients a diversified and innovative range of risk management solutions spanning life, health, and the P&C business. And JC has amassed a wealth of experience in sales, marketing, risk management, and just executive leadership. I'm really excited because he brings a unique perspective to the table, despite not having been a traditional actuarial or finance background. And it's a privilege to sit down and talk with him today. JC, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Peter. I really appreciate it.
So, despite being the U.S. CEO of a reinsurance company, you're not an actuary or an underwriter, and you didn't have a typical finance background. How did you end up in insurance? It's always a weird path. Usually people have an uncle that got them into it, or, what's your story?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to that, I think, particularly reinsurance. I think everybody who's in reinsurance kind of stumbles here. Nobody goes to college thinking I want to get into reinsurance, particularly in the life side. It's pretty obscure. So for me, I honestly graduated from college. I had a business degree, emphasis in management information systems, and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I was thinking, a systems analyst training program is probably what I would have done. And I was approached by a guy who was at a recruiting day my last semester of college, and convinced me to come work for MetLife in a management training program, is what he called it. I found out pretty quickly that it was selling life insurance, and it really wasn't a true management training program, but he had convinced me that it would be. But I tell you, I learned a lot from that experience. You had to put your list together of 100 family and friends that you're going to approach after you get out of the training that we did outside of Chicago. And you really learn what people are all about, how to engage and connect with people, what their needs are. And it was an invaluable experience to do that for a year. And towards the end of that, I was, realized that wasn't a career for me. I have a lot of respect for agents because, they're working 24/7. Everybody is a prospect. There's an opportunity no matter who you talk to. And for me, I wanted a little bit more separation, I think, between my personal life and my work. And so I was thinking about looking for a systems analyst job, training job somewhere. A good friend of mine was in my hometown that I was living and working out of in Iowa. And we were having drinks, hanging out one night. And he said, well, if you're really interested in my dad, I was interested in moving to the Dallas area. And his dad had lived there for a long time and had a lot of connections. So I contacted him, hoping he could set up some interviews. And turns out he was the head of sales and marketing at a small reinsurance company in the U.S. that was just kind of starting up. He had a job he thought I might be interested in, and came down to Kansas City to interview. And here I am, 35 plus years later, still in the reinsurance business.
That's amazing. I feel like selling life insurance is, especially for a young person, is an amazing opportunity to develop emotional intelligence and just mature as a person, peering into human nature and the, anxieties and, just fears of a typical family. It's really a vulnerable, position to be in.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. You really do grow that ability to connect emotionally with people, to understand how people are feeling and what their fears are. That sales opportunity, that experience was invaluable. I think that I still use some of those tools, when I lead and manage people, but I wouldn't trade that time for anything.
And so before becoming the CEO of SCOR USA, you helped lead Generali USA, which is part of Italy's largest insurance company. How did you come into that role?
Yeah, so I'd made a couple stops along the way. I'd worked for this small company, Francona, that was one I mentioned, that I joined in Kansas City, and I worked there for 10 years, in sales, and then had, the marketing and sales area reporting to me. We were acquired by a GE capital company, ERC, and so they offered me a job kind of running their life business in Chicago. So I moved there. They really didn't have much of a presence there, but kind of built that up from really very little business in that region to having it be the largest producing region. Worked there for a while, for 4 years, and then felt like I was kind of stalled out a little bit and was approached about a Six Sigma job within GE. So I went to work in that position for 8 months. I learned a lot. That's a lot about how to lead people who aren't reporting to you and how to run a project, and a lot about the use of data and decision making, which before, I think I was more intuitive based, where during that Six Sigma experience, I was working to become a black belt and really using data to help make your decisions. And then from there, I decided to get back in the business, was approached by Transamerica Re, lived in Charlotte running their sales operation there, and then the opportunity to come to Generali. So I had a lot of growth opportunities along the way that took on more leadership responsibility. Worked for a big reinsurer. Transamerica was very big, but then going to a small company, kind of back to a small company, and bringing that knowledge that had accumulated over time to a company that was operating mainly in the small insurance company market, and bringing them more into the mainstream and helping them grow. So it was a good opportunity for me to bring that knowledge to Generali and to take the leadership step to kind of like a next level and help that company, help the team move into a market that traditionally they hadn't been in at all.
Oh, amazing. So, JC, the average listener knows what reinsurance is, but can you describe what really creates value in life reinsurance? How do you grow to be SCOR's size? Obviously acquisitions is one way, but how do you really create value over time in life reinsurance?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think, SCOR became the leading life reinsurer in the US market, both in terms of new business and volume overnight through these acquisitions. But I don't think we were really adding the value that we wanted to add or needed to add to be a really top reinsurer. So just because you have more business than somebody else doesn't mean you're really the value added reinsurer, or somebody who's looked at as the company you want to go to for support. So for us, it was really trying to find those things that add value beyond the capacity that we provide in the market. We didn't want to be known just as a cheap capacity player. There are certain things we needed to do to connect with our customers in a way that's more meaningful than just the volume that we take on from them or the capital support that we might provide. So for us, it was really trying to understand what's of value to our customers. We felt underwriting is something that's our core skill set. And what can we do to better understand underwriting in the market? And what adds value in the underwriting process? How can we accelerate the underwriting process? What are different tools we can bring to the table, knowledge and expertise? Kind of looking at the whole market. And that's something that a reinsurer is really in a unique position, to be able to build these relationships with a wide number of companies in the market, kind of learn from all those experiences and bring that knowledge and expertise to our customers. Because we all think that every company's out there exploring the universe, but they're not. They're usually caught in their world and doing things the way they've done things, so they don't have as much outside knowledge as you think they might have. So for reinsurers, it's important for us to explore, to learn, to grow with not just our traditional partners, but today in particular, companies like Ethos and other companies that are really out there trying to innovate and grow, learn from you, bring people together, bring partners together, and kind of insert ourselves in that process. So to me, it's if we can get to a place where, we're really building something with our customers, and then reinsurance is kind of an output from that, that project together and building something together, whether it be a product, whether it be connections in the market. And then reinsurance just kind of comes from that, as opposed to just looking at it from a traditional, you get an RFP, you quote on the business, you hope to have a good enough price to be accepted. So it's that true partnership, I think that's really important, that sets a company apart from just being a capacity provider and really turns them into a true partner.
That makes sense. So for our listeners, there are 5 major life reinsurers that account for 71% of business: SCOR, Munich Re, Swiss Re, RGA, Hanover Re. And it's a really competitive market. And it could be perceived as these companies are bidding for a commodity, absent the offering of services, knowledge, tools, et cetera. And I guess, have you found that these offerings and the wisdom that you bring has allowed you guys to preserve margins in a way that, you otherwise wouldn't be able to?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's always a question, right? If you're doing value added services and investing in something other than just putting together a really competitive quote, are you getting the right return for that?
Yeah.
And I think we are. I mean, one, it's building relationships that open up opportunities for more if you're doing things well that are far beyond just the capacity you provide. It's a lot easier to move away from somebody if all you're doing is providing capacity and price. But if you're viewed as a real partner and are a key piece of building products and growing things with them, it's harder to move away from that. And I do think, at least I hope think so, our customers would answer that way, that yes, we look at SCOR as somebody that we give an opportunity to stay in a pool at a price that maybe isn't as competitive as the most competitive prices. We understand we still have to be in the ballpark. You can't be outside of the range, which impacts their profitability. But if you're on the ground floor helping to build that product and incorporating that into the price of the offering, then I think you have more opportunity to get a better margin.
And over the last 20 years, has client relationship been just as important? Is it more important? Is it less important today? Like, how's the dynamic changing? Is it becoming a more competitive and more efficiently priced market?
Yeah, I think the whole concept of partnership, we've talked about that. Like I said, I've been in the business a very long time. If you look back at reinsurance, when I started, like in 1986, it was very much a commodity market. But margins were a little bit different back then. Just the ceding companies' margins were different. So most business was ceded on an excess basis. So we were kind of an afterthought in the process. So it's, the direct companies kept most of the business. Reinsurers just participated in kind of a small share of it. But over time, particularly with, for example, preferred underwriting, reinsurers took a more aggressive view of mortality in preferred underwriting. So, that opened up partnerships to grow and share more business. So it became more of a first dollar quota share business. But even back then, we weren't really operating with a lot of data that we were using. Much of our business was more of a spreadsheet type of business where you didn't have seriatim data to really help drive your decisions and understand performance. Now that's changed a lot. We have a lot of data we can use. There's a lot more to explore in the market as well. I think reinsurers have positioned themselves effectively as experts in underwriting and exploring different partnerships that I think brings a lot more value to the ceding companies. So it's much more of a partnership business. There's so much more to explore. This whole acceleration of underwriting, I think, we're all gathering information and sharing it and working together to really understand what the future looks like. And I think that puts reinsurers in a much better position to partner than we have historically.
And from a pricing perspective, is life reinsurance similar to P&C in that there's like an underwriting cycle where carriers retain more and more and swell, and then they get religion at some point and move back to retaining less? Like, how does that work, or is it very constant and stable?
It's more constant, I would say. I mean, there've been some cycles if you look back in the life reinsurance space. One of them, when I talked about preferred underwriting, that was one where session rates prior to that were probably like 10% or less, and then preferred underwriting came in, and reinsurers were participating more. 80-90% of the risk went to reinsurers in some situations. I don't think that's a very healthy situation to be in, honestly, because usually it means we're seeing something so different, that it's not aligned. We don't really have that true partnership or alignment with our seeding companies. So we went through a cycle, kind of the late 80s, early 90s, and then that kind of continued, up to around 2000, where session rates were pretty high. Now, reinsurers kind of realized that, I think, this isn't right. And as experience started to develop, we realized, okay, we didn't really get this right. So the prices changed. And I think that drove more of a alignment around mortality, where before there was a misalignment, where reinsurers are a little bit more aggressive. So I think this alignment, now that you have in the market, has driven a more rational session rate of like around 25 to 35%, which I think is a much better place to be. So yeah, P&C is more, it's more of a cycle of, it's a hard market and everybody takes advantage of the reinsurers, take advantage of that. And then they almost know they're going to enter into this soft market where, prices aren't going to be rational. I could never quite get my, head around that, where
you get while the getting's good.
Yeah. So the cycles are much more distinct, although I think they become a little less distinct. Those hard markets don't seem to last as long as they used to on the P&C side, and you get to the soft market quicker. But it is a different market.
So SCOR offers the Velogica underwriting engine and system. How important has this been, as a cornerstone of the offering? Munich Re has MRAS, RGA has Aura. I can't remember what Swiss's engine is called, but how's Velogica differentiated? And then how much crossover do you see with your reinsurance business? Is it very common that clients will utilize this tool and service, or is it really an independent business?
It's been very much a part of our business. Velogica, I guess one thing that sets it apart is it's been around a long time. I mean, this goes back to the Transamerica days, 2005, 2006, where they really started to launch this. But it's really evolved. It started out as a kind of a simplified underwriting acceleration model, where you could have a more predictable result in simplified underwriting. And to be honest with you, it really, I think, kind of stayed that way for quite a while, until honestly, when SCOR acquired Transamerica and then Generali, we started to think, how can we use this in the mainstream market? How do we take Velogica to the next level of making it more in the preferred space, the fully underwritten space, and not just simplified underwriting? So I guess the thing that kind of sets it apart, it's been around much longer than any of the other models. The other thing that sets it apart is we really just focus on the underwriting decision and not the workbench. We're not really interested in being in the software business in the sense of the entire workbench. We think there are other companies that are better suited to that. We're really focused on the underwriting decision and everything that we can do to add value in that process. That's our core skill set. So Velogica works on taking data sources and giving an underwriting decision that can be used either in an acceleration model, helps decide whether you're going to accelerate or not, or it can make the decision as well. And we've evolved into working with predictive model into Velogica, and continue to look at it as how do we make this one of the key components that we can help our clients make their underwriting decisions more consistently, more effectively, and faster.
And I assume it makes your client partnership stickier. What's the average tenure of a client?
Oh, we've had some clients that have been around, from that 2005 era that still use the system today. Yeah. And then we've had newer ones that have used it more in the accelerated model that have been with us really going back to, shortly after the Generali acquisition, when we started to integrate this more into that space. Another one, still have another major one that has gone from using it in the simplified underwriting space to now bringing predictive modeling into the process, fully integrate this into their underwriting process. So yeah, most of the customers that come on stick around for a very long time.
Amazing. And so, we got to know each other through our partnership with SCOR. And I just want to shout out, you have an amazing team in Richard and Manisha, just fabulous people.
Yeah.
How do you view MGAs in partnerships, and, any general thoughts on the insurtech landscape?
Yeah, I think, I appreciate those comments on Richard and Manisha. I agree 100%. And I think that's why we started this group. I remember I met Manisha when she was up in Canada working with our team up there, and recruited her to come to the US as we built this team that was really focused on exploring the ecosystem and looking for different ways to partner and to expand our knowledge of what we're doing in that area, which was really a big step for us, because part of it was we didn't want to step on the toes of our clients in their distribution sources and what they're doing. We really don't have an interest in owning distribution, but our interest is learning from distribution. Like, we learned so much from working with you about your approach and your new thoughts and ideas. We've worked to get a little bit closer to some other distribution sources just to really understand what they're doing and what their thoughts are, to test our own concepts of what we have that we've learned through really exploring the whole ecosystem of insurtechs, distributors, new distributors, and then trying to bring them together with our traditional clients to help innovate and grow. So for us, that team, Richard, Manisha, and everybody that works on that team is really focused on how do we do things differently? How do we accelerate? And what can we learn? And how can we bring people together to build something? So that's been, just a great experience for us. And I think it's our path to the future. We continue to support our customers in a traditional way as well. But I think there's so much going on in the market. The more we can learn and grow, the more value we bring to our traditional customers to help them grow as well.
Yeah, I mean, reflecting on what you're saying, when we were just getting started, without a reinsurer's support, we couldn't have gotten our first carrier deal to build proprietary products and get started in doing what we're doing. It was critical to have their blessing and confidence and, partnership on the risk retention. So,
well, likewise, I think for us too. I think that's what we realized is, innovation. Life insurance is still a very conservative business.
Yeah.
And for good reasons. I mean, they've survived and very few failures in the history of life insurance. So that conservative nature is built into, the organization. And anytime something new comes in, it gets scrutinized and run through the legal process, compliance, regulatory, and oftentimes dies, during that process. So we realized for us to try to get more on the front end, to partner with you and other companies to really learn and then bring that to our customers as a risk partner. They're more willing to do that if we do some of the vetting up front and we connect each other. Then I think we felt we have more likelihood of success, which is true. And I think we bring change to the market as well.
And so, we share a passion in working to close the gap of uninsured or underinsured people. Can you share how SCOR is thinking about bridging this gap? Do you think this is an obvious place for insurtech to help solve by, eliminating costs in the transaction? In general, how do you think about it?
Yeah, I think, obviously the potential, the opportunity is there. There's been enough articles written on it. There's enough research that's been done to say there are a large group of people that, don't have access to insurance. They want insurance, don't have access to it because the market has kind of moved on from, that market, which is really where I started when I was selling life insurance. That list of 100 people that I put together were friends and family in my small town.
Yeah.
Right. They're not, it's not an affluent community. So it's not as if they're being approached by every broker in the market who's focused on the affluent market. So I feel that over time, life insurance companies kind of moved away from that model of developing their own distribution, supporting new people coming into the market, which really taps into that kitchen table, small market, sales. They felt like I get more if I go to the brokerage market and go after an affluent market. I can't afford to go after the small policies,
Yeah.
right? So I think there's this tremendous opportunity out there. There's a need out there. There's a demand, but the traditional system can't afford to get there. They can't find a way to say, oh, it's worth my time to sell a $25,000 life insurance policy because I don't want to have to go call on that person 4 times to get a sale. So how can you accelerate that? How can you get the message out in a more cost-effective way, in a less invasive way that moves people through the process more efficiently and more effectively, that then allows a new distribution idea and source to come in and tap into things differently, because the old way isn't going to get it done. So how do we get there, and how do we get the message out? And that's one of the things I really appreciate about Ethos. I think that commitment and that focus and that ability to get to people differently and tap into that market, that's something we're very passionate about. How can we change the underwriting process, make decisions a little bit differently, more cost effective, that allows companies like you, distributors like you and our partners, to make it more cost effective to get into that market. So really us focusing kind of on that risk piece of it, and then also understanding the new distribution, so then we can give our blessing and say we're interested in taking this risk. I think that's what we can do to help on the process.
Makes sense. So let's turn to your leadership. I've heard you been described as unflappable in the face of, volatility, just, steady. How would your team describe your leadership style?
Well, that's nice to hear that. I guess that's really a good question for the team. For me personally, I value being a part of a team. And I think there's a lot of power in people working together. And there's a lot of power of everybody feeling they have an equal say at the table. And I think, I've worked for companies and I've worked for people who are the smartest guy in the room, and they make sure they're the smartest guy in the room. And I think that really mutes all of the other voices that are there and limits, the opportunity to learn and grow from the people who are sitting at the table. So for me, I feel like I'm another person at the table. I might have this title, and if something's going to happen, I'm going to take the heat for it. But I think we do it as a team. And I think if you do that, if you lead that way and your team is really feeling like they're a part of something, that just extends through the organization, right? It's everybody leads in a way that includes everybody. And if you do that, I think there's a lot of power in that. I've always been lucky because I've never been the smartest guy in the room. So it makes it easy for me to sit at the table and, and approach things that way. But I think, if more people had that attitude, I think they get more out of your organization. And I think we've made a lot of progress at SCOR. We still have a ways to go. Every day I feel like I learn a little bit more and I grow a little bit more, and I need to be more aware and conscious of how people are feeling and make sure that I'm inclusive and every interaction I have is respectful and appreciative with every person in the organization. And then I think that, that creates, some power and some enthusiasm and people feeling like they're a part of something, as opposed to having a job, right? That's the last thing I want people to feel is I'm going to my job today. I want them to go, to SCOR, to collaborate, to work together, to build something together. And I think if we all lead that way, then that spreads through the organization and people really feel connected to that.
And how do you manage the business day to day? Do you spend most of your time with clients, working on new business, reviewing profitability and results and data, managing through your team? Like what's your typical week?
Yeah, I spend less time with clients than I used to. I love that part of it. I think it's extremely important to spend time with clients and connect with clients. I think it's more our plan. Are we executing on our plan? Where are we? What does the organization look like? Do we have the right skills and talent? Are we developing people the right way? Are we moving forward as an organization? So I spent a lot of time kind of working around the plan. I'm on the global leadership team as well. So, I spend time connecting with the global group as well. But it's just more, are we on the right path? We define a path of where we want to go. Are we making progress with that? And then, do we need to change that? Do we need to alter things? Does it still hold up the way we thought it held up 6 months ago? So a lot of it is focused around the plan and moving forward. A lot of it's around talent in the organization. Are we developing the right people? Are we connecting our people in a meaningful way? So yeah, that's where I spend most of my time. Richard and Manisha are the ones that get to do the fun stuff and connect in the market more, and then just me connecting with them and learning more about what's going on and doing whatever I can to make sure we're supporting all that and connecting the organization in a meaningful way.
Amazing. So let's get to know you personally. I've heard that you host the most elaborate Halloween parties and that your costumes are impeccable. What's your favorite costume that you've ever brought to the table?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, my wife and I are both, we really enjoy Halloween and do all the decorations outside, and we host a party. Not a huge party, maybe like 30 people or so, but everybody who comes has to be in costume. And so we really get into that every year. We've had a Batman costume, which that was pretty elaborate. It was like an authentic one. But I have to say, there were two. There was one where I was dressed up as the Joker, and my wife was dressed up as Harley Quinn. So it was like the modern day Joker. I like that one a lot. There was one where I was dressed up as a pimp, and my wife had like the appropriate outfit, to go along with me.
We should have asked for photos ahead of the podcast.
Yeah, there's some good photos. Yeah, but it's just fun. I think that's just an escape, right? And when you invite people to come over and they get in costume, they get to be somebody else for the day, and so you just get in character and just have a good time. And always appreciate having that time with my friends in a different kind of way.
I once reused the same Halloween costume 3 years in a row, but with 3 different takes on it: Cowboy, Marlboro Man, and Indiana Jones. And
I like that.
It was the lazy way to do it.
Yeah, well, you're much more cost effective than we are, because we just pile these costumes up every year.
What's your favorite place to vacation?
Oh, we love to go to Turks and Caicos. I don't know if you've been to Turks and Caicos before. It's just a beautiful place. I mean, it's starting to become more and more discovered, and we went there. My wife and I went there on our honeymoon back in 2012, and then our family has gone there. I think we've been there 7 times now. And so we stay at this place called the Grace Bay Club, and they have units that are like condo units, so you can have the whole family on one floor, and just beautiful white sand beaches, the clearest water, blue water you've ever seen anywhere. I mean, and the people are so friendly. And where we stay, it's easy to walk to a grocery store or restaurants, and you feel like you're a part of the community. But it's just such a gorgeous place. And our kids love to go there. They have all the water sports, all the stuff to do, and it's not super crowded. It's very nice. So that's an easy question to answer. That's our favorite place.
Sounds lovely. And then, do you have a favorite leadership book for our listeners to read?
I don't really have one book in particular. I would say, kind of self-exploration is one that I think has been really helpful for me. And there's this book called The Untethered Soul, which really isn't about leadership, but it's about yourself and kind of understanding yourself and some of how you process information and how you process feelings, and kind of like how you were from birth kind of, trained a certain way. And that book was really a book that helped me kind of think about myself, which helped me show up in a different way, I think, as a leader, as a person. So I'm really big into the, self-exploration stuff. Simon Sinek's books too are great and talks. I mean, I really think the purpose-driven things are really, I think, good to like think about what's the purpose and what you're doing. How do you connect people around that? But I think kind of this, more self-exploration, I think helps you as a leader as much as a leadership book in particular.
Yeah, and leading without ego.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Well, JC, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I feel like this was just a really insightful session into how reinsurance works, how you operate as a leader, and just getting to know you personally. So thank you for taking the time. I'm sure our listeners got a lot out of this.
Oh, Peter, thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the partnership as well.
Likewise. We're so enthusiastic about what we're doing together. So,
yep, as we are.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, and take care and have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of What's Your Ethos? If you're interested in helping to protect the next million families, come join us. You can learn more about Ethos at ethoslife.com. I'll see you next time.